The Morning Dump from Hurrdat Sports with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
And we're back on Thursday. DB Andrew Rogers away from our usual home, which is Hale Varsity Club, the only place you should be to watch a sporting event and enjoying a night out with your family. Some of the best food, some of the best drinks, and if you want some specials, maybe some perks, get that Hale Varsity subscription, which is that online article or magazine. You can use that promo code AR for a monthly subscription or DB for the yearly.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it too. Why not?
It's a really good place to eat. The TV setup is fantastic, but I'm pretty impressed with the food.
Food's incredible.
I'm a total foodie, man. So I'm all in on pumping the food as well as the viewing experience for the television setup.
Pick an item on the menu. What's your go-to when you're there?
So I have a couple. I really like the wings. I like the buffalo mac and cheese, and I like the spicy shrimp dip.
Give me any one of those wraps. Whether it's buffalo chicken.
Guy? I'm not a wrap guy. I'm sure they're good, right? But
you don't like wraps?
They're okay. They're okay.
Don't let Drake or Migos or anybody hear you say that.
Actually, it would be guys like Drake, 21 Savage, Future, Lil Baby. Could go old school too.
Roddy?
Yeah. No, I'm not a Roddy Ricch guy.
What about DaBaby?
A little overrated.
Stop.
Kind of I don't.
Great music.
Great is a little bit of a.
You think an overstatement?
Yeah, a little bit.
Wow,
a little bit.
Well, hey, maybe
how about the creamy Cajun shrimp dip though? Like, have you had that here?
No.
Oh, unreal.
I've had like the boom boom shrimp.
Yeah, it's a creamy shrimp. It's fantastic.
I love seafood. Why not?
As do I. Trying to convert my house. It's baby steps though.
You should. You have a smoker, right?
I have two. Yeah.
You should smoke salmon.
I do. I just did. I just smoked salmon.
Really?
2 Sundays ago.
And your family's still not in?
They like salmon. We had a little smoked salmon, a little dirty rice, a little shrimp.
Oh, man, why wasn't I invited?
Yeah, well, I didn't know you lived right around the corner.
Yeah, you did. You've known for a while now.
I mean, basically,
you can't get out of this.
I mean, that's that bad boy right there. Wow. Oh yeah, it was sensational.
What's it like? Just lemon pepper seasoning, or what you do on top?
So I used Tony Catchery and a little blackened seasoning and some pink Himalayan salt, and I was good to go. It was
like pink Himalayan salt.
It was fantastic.
Good for the electrolytes.
Yeah, that's kind of my staple.
Himalayan pink salt.
Yeah, we have some natural sea salt that we use sometimes, but yeah, the pink Himalayan salt is unbelievable. These shrimp right here were actually smoked. This makes for a great vibe. But yeah, go ahead. That's homemade.
Yum.
It was just unreal. So props.
Are you still salivating? yeah. Toot your own horn a little bit.
I really like to cook, and so
I've
thrown out a lot of things. Like I've tossed whole racks of ribs. That's not my. Like I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not. Mm-hmm. Ribs are somewhere down the line.
Which ribs seem easier to me because you smoke them longer.
So here's the thing. I know what I want. And so I'm trying to replicate that at home because I know what it tastes like of what I like. Because I didn't really, you're going to laugh. I didn't start eating ribs in 48. I probably didn't start enjoying ribs until I was probably 42 years old, 43.
Holy cow.
Yeah, because you've
been missing out your whole lilife.
Well, I don't like barbecue sauce, so it was trial and error of where I could go and who could do it.
But you don't need barbecue sauce.
No, and I learned that. Just kind of misled as a child.
Wow.
And they're a little overrated. Like it's not my go-to that I would smoke.
Well, ribs.
I like
smoking ribs are fire.
I like rib tips. I like burn-ins.
Yeah.
Both of which I would get before I would get ribs.
Yeah. Just smoking a pork butt. That's exciting.
Way overrated.
No way. Man,
overrated.
Come on.
You're too old to be eating pulled meat. Like,
no. No way.
Once you get your adult teeth, you should stop eating boneless wings and shredded meat.
Well, I don't eat boneless wings. Boneless wings to me are overrated.
Oh, God, I don't even understand how people do that. But
they're smaller chunks of chicken fingers.
I think you've earned the right to not shred your meat.
No, pulled pork. Pulled pork's different, man.
Okay.
Pulled pork hits different. When you pull that thing apart, man, if it's just falling off so when you smoke, you want to tenderize the meat.
Yeah.
And you want it to fall off the bone. So more often than not, it's going to shred itself.
Yeah, I don't mind chunks as much as
like stringy pieces.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Not my jam.
I know what you're saying. What is my jam, though, is seeing the college football rankings come out for the playoffs and still seeing my TCU team up in the top 4. Will they stay there? That's the big question. Georgia, of course, the powerhouse in all of college football. I think there is a separation from them, from everybody else. 2, 3, 4 down the list. Ohio State at 2, Michigan at 3. You look at those top 4. Yes, if the season ended today, that's who you'd see. But do you see the top 4 being these teams with still 2 weeks to play?
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to get, Georgia. They're pretty complete, right? And I know they're in the SEC and arguably have the toughest schedule remaining of potential teams they could play. And yes, I do know Ohio State could see Michigan or will see Michigan, but that's just one game. Not so sure what's coming down the pipe for TCU. They're in a really good spot as long as they don't stub their toe. Now the key is, and the committee told you, if you're Tennessee, you're just laying in the cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you get in over a 1-loss Ohio State or Michigan?
I think if Michigan were to lose to Ohio State, yes, is the answer to that question. Is it the right answer? I don't think so. I think Michigan should be there no matter what. But if you look at the strength of schedule for Tennessee versus Michigan, that's what propels them because neither will have the conference championship on their resume.
And Tennessee is looking at 11-1 because they have South Carolina and Vanderbilt left.
That'll be Michigan too. Yeah. So do you put a Michigan team in there that's been in the top 3 all season long? Or do you put the Tennessee team in there that beat Alabama earlier this year, that competed against Georgia the best they could?
They weren't good against Georgia. They got beat pillar to post. That was not a good performance.
Score-wise, though, it wasn't as...
better than the actual style of game because Georgia was in control of that one.
And I'm with you.
And if Georgia doesn't turn the ball over early, Tennessee's...
I'm with you. But you look at Tennessee, they have one of the worst defenses out of any team in the rankings for football.
Outside of TCU.
Yeah, 100%. But TCU has that 0 going for them.
Yeah. And listen, if you're a Tennessee or a TCU fan and you're thinking to yourself, all right, time to represent the Big 12, you still have a couple of tough tasks looming with Baylor.
Baylor's not easy.
Yeah.
Especially because Duggan isn't fully healthy.
And Iowa State's no gimme. So, say what you will.
Iowa State could play a good game or they could play a really bad game.
So when you're looking at that and you see SC sitting just outside the top 6 after LSU, what if Southern Cal runs the table?
If they run the table, I love that you brought this up because they beat 2 ranked teams before they get to their conference championship game. Then they have to beat a ranked team in the conference championship game because there's 6 Pac-12 teams in the top 25
in the Pac-12 round robin.
You look at just their strength of schedule, they go to 4.
You would think.
They go right up there because they have the conference championship on their resume, and the committee loves that.
But the committee doesn't seem to like them right now.
Not right now, because they have 1 loss, and the loss came to Utah, which was a ranked team at the time, and it was by 1 point.
And Utah's in the top 10 of the CFP. So, right. Maybe that's one of those 2-loss teams that I wouldn't enjoy playing, especially if Cam Rising is on
Utah.
His game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think LSU gets in. I don't see them beating Georgia, but even if they do beat Georgia, I don't see them getting in. I don't think they're the first 2-loss team to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think the committee would like to keep that string intact, but it would be hard to thumb your nose up if it was an impressive win over Georgia. But we'll see. A lot.
What's impressive to you against Georgia, though? Is it just 3 points? You win by a game-winning field goal?
Well, considering how Georgia has annihilated most of the competition, a double-digit win, 10, 14
I don't see it happening.
No,
LSU
I don't either.
Me.
I just, we'll have to see how that plays out.
But Georgia, like I said, has that special separation. They are like 2 steps ahead of every other team in college football right now. So if LSU were to do it, it also wouldn't shock me to see LSU
You know
jump
what's
to 4.
interesting is, and I was the one, and you were talking about this on the morning dump, I was put off by the fact that I said Tennessee had no business being ranked ahead of Georgia. I was entirely glad to see what Georgia did to those guys in that head-to-head matchup, which I think we both predicted
We predicted double-digit win for Georgia.
Like, how in the world do you guys look at both those teams and think that Tennessee's the better team?
You look at Hendon Hooker and you're like, oh, I'm buying into the hype right now. That's what they looked at.
He can play, but that's just not a good matchup.
No.
Not a good matchup.
You look offensively and defensively, and even with a big injury for Georgia defensively, they still look as strong as ever.
Or are you surprised to see Clemson kind of get buried?
No. I think Clemson was a bit overrated most of this year, too. They competed in games, and they ended up winning games that I don't think they should have. But once Notre Dame completely stepped on them like an ant.
But they do have the big one coming up with North Carolina after, I think, because they have South Carolina and who's this
What's that, the ACC championship game?
Yeah, North Carolina, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've got...
You beat North Carolina, but North Carolina, even if they beat Clemson...
Clemson's got this week? Miami, right?
They'll make a 6 bowl, but that's it.
So it's Miami, South Carolina for Clemson, and then North Carolina. You love North Carolina.
I love North Carolina, but
your
the teams
led guys.
Yeah, the teams ahead of them though. North Carolina's not getting into the college football playoff. They'll make a New Year's 6 bowl, but they won't make the college football playoff. That's because I think North Carolina is going to win out. I think they beat Clemson. Now Clemson is still a tall drink of water.
Right,
they're nothing to sleep on,
especially if that D-line is back healthy and intact.
And Dabo Swinney's a hard coach to beat.
Yes, he is.
So the way I look at it, though, I'm still a huge Drake May guy. He's still finding his way in the Heisman race. Will he win the Heisman? Let's be realistic. No, he won't win the Heisman. But does he have a chance to be a finalist? I think so. I think with the numbers that he's put up this year, he's been incredible. Now,
well, I'll let you know that in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
I got
voter to my right. Kentucky against Georgia. Kentucky not ranked anymore, but that's not to say Kentucky's not a very good football team.
Boy, they're reeling, though. That offense, I know pro scouts are high on Levis.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Why is Levis, and I saw this the other day, and I know their takes on Twitter, and there's some obnoxious ones, and there's some that are relatively decent. But Levis was ranked as the top quarterback going into the draft. Is he not the next Mitchell Trubisky or Daniel Jones coming in?
I just got to take better care of the ball.
Or is Drake May more the Mitchell Trubisky, Daniel Jones?
I still think the verdict's out on May. Because people kind of question his caliber of competition. But, I mean, Will Levis he's got 9 interceptions, a couple deflections, but still.
That's high.
That's a lot.
That's what I think the leader has close to maybe 14,
and
12 or 14.
He's not even a 2-to-1 touchdowns to interception guy. Now, keep in mind the skill, the talent level outside the numbers isn't like some of his counterparts at the quarterback spot, but you got to take better care of the
Now, I haven't seen Kentucky play as many games as I probably should have this year, but how often is he forced to throw? And are those coming when they're down in games?
When they were playing well, they were running the ball extremely well. Now, throwing when they have to has since become a problem, but that's how you've lost 4 out of your last 6. So, I mean, it is what it is.
You look at this now, we ran down the top 7 teams, but is there a team outside the top 7 that you see potentially being a college football playoff team this late in the season?
That's tough, but if there is one, I would keep an eye on Clemson. Somehow.
Got to find that ACC opponent.
You know, because I don't see it being LSU because they're 6, SC is 7, Alabama's 8. Again, the 2-loss Bama, long way for them to hurdle. The next most logical choice would be a 9-1 Clemson somehow. I'd have to break perfectly, but we'll see. Yeah,
just that game against Syracuse, they got lucky. Yes, they just lost to Notre Dame, and they did get a good win against Louisville. They beat Florida State, who's now playing some really good football, ranked in the top 25. NC State, when they played them, was ranked. And you look at who they're playing now. Miami, who started the year, 9th in the country. South Carolina, that's made their way into the top 25 at one point. And then UNC. So
Gosh, remember when we liked Beamer?
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater with SC. USC, or excuse me, University of
South Carolina. You got
not
there.
Southern Cal. Fudge. I just don't. I don't see it outside the top 7.
I don't either. At this point,
it would be awful late in the season too to make some sort of weird swing.
Well, you look at a lot of the games that teams are playing this week, and this is kind of the week that everybody, when they built their schedule, was going to play the worst team in their conference.
There's not a ton of what I would call sexy matchups.
No, but you look at like Florida Vanderbilt, for example. Nobody thought Vanderbilt would be a bowl game team, and they could be if they somehow, some way, find a way to beat Florida.
Yeah, I'm a little biased, but I think Clark Lee's the real deal.
Yeah,
I think he's a fantastic coach. He's put together a really good staff, and it's good to see Vanderbilt doing what they do.
Well, 14.5-point underdogs in this matchup. They lost. I think they got shut out 42-0, 48-0 last year. But you look at Vandy and think when you're building the schedule based on what happened last year, you're like, oh, this is the cakewalk week, right? And that's just one team. There are a lot of teams out there that are playing a team that you're like, what the heck? Like, who's watching this at 2:30? Who's watching this at 6:30 tonight? That's kind of this week for college football.
North Carolina State and Louisville, which is kind of a tricky game for NC State.
Yeah.
A lot of Dave Doran backers out there. And you kind of wake up and you're like, gosh, NC State's just 7-3. Did you assume better? I think a lot of people liked them as a bit of a dark horse this year.
They did, but NC State kind of fell into their own issues. They kind of got swallowed by their own defeat.
What do you think happens with Texas and Kansas?
That one's interesting to me because I still think Texas has the talent to be an undefeated football team, and they just haven't found ways to win football games. As for Kansas, are they still rocking Bean?
I don't know. That's going to be. I think that's this week, right?
Is Daniels back this week?
I don't know.
So, you're looking at a backup quarterback against Quinn Ewers, or if Daniels plays,
Texas has got to get better quarterback play.
Well, Quinn is a real interesting person to me because he was so highly touted coming out of high school.
Not vibing.
And he transferred from Ohio State, if I'm correct. And
after sitting out his senior year because of the NIL deal,
he just doesn't look comfortable.
Could have used a lot more playing.
You have one of the best running backs in football behind you that can make special plays.
It's the real deal.
And you're not doing enough as a quarterback to help win football games. I know when teams lose, people like us in the general public tend to blame the quarterback more than they blame, the safety or the linebacker, wide receiver. It falls on the quarterback. I get that. I'm not trying to knock Quinn Ewers because I think he is talented. He showed that off early on in the season before he got hurt. But aside from that, he hasn't been good. He just has not played good football. That game's interesting to me. Because I didn't pay close enough attention. Is this game in Kansas or at Texas?
Yeah, it's in Lawrence.
So Kansas, I think, wins this football game then at home. If Daniels plays.
Getting a healthy 9. Texas is favored by 9 on the
Texas
road.
has been favored in most of their games this year that they ended up losing. They were favored against Oklahoma State. They were favored last week. What's happening? What are people seeing that you're putting at me for a reason?
It's interesting that you'd bring up the quarterback. It's always his fault. It always lays on his shoulders. There's never a single person like that on the defense. If you think about that.
What's wrong with that free safety? I mean, man. What's wrong with that nose guard?
But that's part of the gig of being the quarterback, though.
Yes,
That's what you get. You get all the perks, you get all the fame, and you get all the blame.
Real quick before we move on, surprised to see Minnesota favored at home against Iowa, or is that about right? A slight 2.5-point fave.
It's just so tough to trust anything in the Iowa offense. You're going to get points from your defense, if anything. It's going to be a pick six again or a fumble recovery for a touchdown if you're getting points from Iowa this week. That, I think, is right on the nose.
2.5?
I think 2.5 is right on the nose.
Well, I don't know. For some reason, I think Iowa finds a way to get that one done.
Well, you talk about you talked about this yesterday, how Iowa paves their own road, right? They control their own destiny.
I think
a little bit of Michigan, Minnesota.
Is he not? He's 6-0 against PJ Fleck, including his days at Western Michigan. 6-0.
Another great coach. We talked about Dabo Swinney. This is a Hall of Fame type coach in the Big Ten.
Man, like I didn't realize he had that kind of ownership, but 2.5. I was a little surprised.
You take the plus money?
Yeah, I would take Iowa now.
And by the way,
I would take Iowa now.
Being from Iowa, they do a bad job at paving roads there. Just bad job in the state.
You got all
really
that,
bad.
you got all that casino money.
No, they don't do a bad job of paving roads. They do a bad job of starting construction and not finishing.
Yeah. That same stretch outside of Des Moines has been being worked on for about the last 3 years.
At least. I don't even know where my head was going when we were talking about Texas, but let's move on to college basketball because I want to keep the discussion here with Texas. They took down Gonzaga last night, which I think came as a surprise to a lot of people. Not that they won
Texas
the
was
spread,
favored, yeah.
Not that they won, but the point margin is what I think was a surprise to a lot of people. But Creighton plays Texas in just a couple of weeks, December 1st. What did you notice from that Texas team?
Oh, they're going to have to shoot it better, number one. But their athleticism and their ability to guard and defend in the front court.
You think Texas needs to shoot it better after putting up
they're not
the points that they did?
Yeah, but they're not. I don't think that's who they are.
Those
right?
two, you don't think it's Marcus Carr and Tyrese Hunter?
Statistically, Carr is light years ahead of how
he doesn't shoot like that on average. Correct.
So
you're correct.
I think
he was hot.
Yeah, like his body of work does not.
Tyrese Hunter, though, good player, really good player,
but he has to do so much. He makes a ton of winning plays. I think my biggest takeaway from Texas is how they defend.
So good. They're long, harassing.
They're athletic. They switch a lot of ball screens.
8 turnovers forced in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was
8 turnovers forced.
So I am a little, I wouldn't say concerned, but Gonzaga didn't look good against Michigan State. And I didn't feel like Michigan State looked good on the carrier either. So, but you're not going to shoot it.
I think the Zags are still searching for their identity.
They have so many different pieces. But they just look disjointed. I did think the way Texas guards, though, that was impressive. I mean, they were just harassing Timmy. Mm-hmm. It was really hard for him to get anything off.
Dylan Mitchell, talk about a stud too, a young up and coming future NBA star. Did you see his putback late in the game?
Yeah.
My.
And you know what happens with him is he stayed out of foul trouble too.
Smart for a young player.
Yeah, he was getting a lot of the little weak side doubles and stuff on Timmy, and I was impressed. I was impressed with Texas's front line.
How about the new venue too?
Yeah, and Beard was losing his mind, hyping up the crowd, and
all about it.
Hey, that Texas Creighton deal is going to be interesting because Christian Bishop gets to play against his former team.
Sure does.
Had the nice little put back, the little up and under last night, but Texas guarding, I was pretty impressed by.
How about locally? Because you had a friend of yours in town coaching Ball State yesterday. Conversation go well with him, obviously, because they did come away with a 10-point win over the Mavs.
Yeah, he was a little concerned going in. That's Shane's buddy, Michael Lewis. He was with Coach Miles' staff at Nebraska, and we kept in good contact with him when he went to UCLA with Mick Cronin. But he's from Indiana. And
I'm thinking that. Yeah.
Yes, you are, Coach. And got the opportunity to be a head coach back at Ball State, right around the corner from where he grew up, and he likes this team. He says they're going to get a lot better, and but was concerned going in last night that they hadn't played the schedule that Omaha had, and surprised to see Ball State favored the way that they were, but rightfully so. And I think UNO or Omaha, still's got to find a way to shoot the basketball.
They have to shoot better.
Got to shoot it better.
Absolutely have to. I mean, you look at just first points off turnovers for Ball State. That really kind of set the tone for the Cardinals in this game. Both teams had 17 turnovers too. That's not good. Nobody's going home. Ball State's not going home with a 10-point win thinking we did it right.
Yeah, and Coach Lewis was talking about how much smarter he wanted his basketball team to play. But I think the 27 points in the first half for UNO was a little bit disappointing, and Coach Crutch and that staff They got to figure out how to get Frankie Fiddler going.
They have to. That is a must. He struggled to shoot the ball again. J.J. White carried the team once again. 15 points, 7 boards,
6 turnovers,
5 assists. And then I was gonna get to it. The 6 turnovers is not something you like to see when your team had 17. You don't want your point guard turning the ball over that much.
That's going to be the thing with him. Is he's talented, but he's got to take better care of the basketball and cut down on the turnovers. But Omar's got to find a way to shoot it better.
You look around the rest of the roster too. Sutton did have 15, but that's the only spot you saw him show up on the depth or on the stat sheet. Yep. You didn't see any boards from him. You didn't see any assists from him. They need more players to create plays for other players. And something that I noticed a lot last year with this team, and I'm not saying this team's the same as last year because they're absolutely not. But last year, this was a team that said we either have to give the ball to Frankie or we're going to try to force a shot. Yeah, it was no other play in mind.
I'm going to reserve judgment until they get a Cola Rope back, who's going to give them some punch and some athleticism in the front court. But like you said a few minutes ago, how well they shoot the basketball is going to go a long way.
And Frankie will shoot better. It will come. It's early in the season.
Take some difficult shots, right? Got to take a deep breath and let the game come to him.
The 12-4 second half run, to open the second half, really pulled Ball State ahead, and they shot the ball well at the free throw line, the charity stripe, to really come away with that win. Upcoming tonight, you have UC Riverside at Creighton. What was the spread of that game? It was only like 18 points, I thought.
Yeah, Riverside's not bad. Plus, they're gonna squeeze the rock a little bit. I'll be curious to see if
Creighton
the Jays
shoots as well.
Gets impatient, and it is Creighton the offensive shooting basketball team that we saw.
And if they shoot really well in this game too, going into that matchup against Texas Tech, the Red Raiders better be keeping their head on a swivel with this team.
Yeah, because I think that they'll guard well, because that's basically what happens when you're in Lubbock. And yeah, I know there was a lot of consternation, hand wringing when Beard left, but Texas Tech coming off a fantastic season and kind of an underappreciated basketball team. And that line still for you is sitting at 18.5 with Creighton and Riverside.
Not too shabby. Hot. That's a big thing. If you take Creighton now, I mean, why not? The way that they're shooting the ball, I would lay all 18 points. I would. Yeah, I would. You would avoid
spectator on that one. There's a better play tonight, I think, against the local team that I like.
Is that in Nebraska St. John's? And is that the over?
Well, what's the total? I'm not a good totals guy.
It was 158.5 points. I would even play it up to 160.5.
Oh, I see.
Really?
Both teams. I mean, this is a fast-paced group of offenses here. Both teams love to move the football at a quick, fast pace, and that's just it's not good recipe for the under.
Yeah, I kind of like St. John's in that one. Nebraska goes through these offensive lows. That has all the makings, and you might be right, because I was just going to say like an 86-74 kind of game.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at St. John's,
and 74, that's 160.
There you go. I like over 158.5. Yeah. So if you take that now, because I think that number keeps climbing, and based on betting trends, I could see it climbing to that 160.5. Now you get to the point where DB just predicted this game to be 160, and you're like, do I take the under? Do I take the under? No, St. John's is shooting over 40% outside from beyond the 3-point line on the young season, and Nebraska gives up 40% of their points from 3.
Yeah.
So it just kind of fits St. John's schematically here, but don't count out the well-rounded shooters early on from Nebraska. They just need to connect from all cylinders.
The efficiency of Sam Griesel. Can he take good care of the basketball and be as efficient as he is from the floor? That's going to be the key, because there's going to be a ton of pressure defensively from your Johnnies, not Shane's Johnnies, your Johnnies.
And they're not my Johnnies.
Not mine either.
St. John's, you know what?
Not a big fan of how they play.
The only St. John's I used to root for was St. John's, Hopkins, and lacrosse way back in the day.
That was an old school. That was really the only team I gravitated towards in the Big East, because I didn't like the conference. I was a Willie Glass, Chris Mullen, Mark Jackson, Walter Berry kind of guy. I didn't like Syracuse or Georgetown. I was old school St. John's.
I love that.
None of them are Carolina, though. That's all that matters.
No, but a couple of big basketball games tonight, as we just said, Creighton and Nebraska. We'll talk more high school football actually tomorrow. Mike Sauter coming on with us, and Sauter is your one-stop shop for all high school news. He'll speak with DB and I because there's a big game coming up for those in Class A here locally. You have Westside and Gretna and a rematch for the state championship game at Memorial Stadium next Monday. And then we'll cover even Class B, C1, C2, D1, D2, and down the list. We're going to go all the way through, talk about some of these state championship games because, you know, there is a lot of hype for Nebraska this weekend, last home game, senior day as well, but there's even more hype coming on the high school front here locally. So we want to hit on that and make sure we touch on them just as much as we touch on the Huskers this week. That's your morning dump. Wipe, get on with your day. Thanks from DB, myself, Shane Schillerberg. We will see you tomorrow.